Good afternoon, ladies and germs. I have returned. So before I get back into B5 Horror on the Hill, I wanted to mention that I had some streaming difficulties yesterday. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'm trying a bunch of different new technologies, and sometimes they don't mesh together or do things that I expect. So something happened yesterday. I didn't get any warnings, but somewhere in between, about an hour and 20 minutes in the end, or right at an hour and 22 minutes or whatever it shows up on YouTube, I stopped streaming, but I was still talking. So I get to the end, I save it, and in different places when I look at the total length of time, it's showing the 2 hours and whatever. I think it was about another hour. I went on 2 hours and 20 minutes of audio and video content. However, as it started processing, suddenly when YouTube, which took forever to process it yesterday, all of a sudden the last hour or whatever was dropped. And the same thing, I'm using Restream, which is great because it gives me a video download right away, which is nice. However, it too seemed to go from showing 2 hours and something minutes when I was looking at it to when I refreshed it to go download the video. So I thought, okay, I could download it and I can just upload the full thing and that'll be great. And it's also was short. So I don't know what happened. I'm not sure where the miscommunication. I'm using OBS, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I don't know if I messed up something there. Whatever it is, I did something, but I'm back. I have returned. I couldn't leave everybody hanging with just, I don't know, 2/3 or whatever it was. So I'm trying to pick up where I left off. It won't be quite as, I don't even remember. I didn't have a script. Obviously, I was just reading live. But it won't necessarily have the same thing because now I'm going to be reading stuff that I did read through, I thought, with everybody. It turned out I was just doing it for myself. I believe we left off at Adventure in Dungeon Level 1. So let's pick up. Pick up where we left off. I'm just putting a quick message in the stream. Whoops, that's I misspell. Last part. Oh boy, and it's riveting. I know as you guys are watching me. All right. Threw a message in the chat. Okay. Adventure in Dungeon Level 1. Or maybe, I guess this is continuing. So I guess we was right in the middle of this that we left because we're at room 46, the Clerics Office. Okay, this is behind a locked door. In this room, a polished circular table, a fur-lined bench, a desk, and a chair give the room a civilized look. An elaborate candelabra made out of silver and worth 50 gold pieces rests on the table. By the way, I'm fans of a lot of these kind of goods that you can find. I kind of want to do, though I haven't done it in my own game and I haven't written up anything about it, is I really would prefer, I think, having a lot of the treasure you find in objects. Because it's a way to world build, it's a way to say things about these people, who they are. You can have fun with the logistics of getting stuff out of an area, particularly when the PCs don't know exactly how much something's worth. But hey, there's this really heavy tapestry. It looks really finely made, but it's going to be heavy. It might take 2 people to carry out. Or there's this other thing that's small. Which do you take? And then it definitely puts kind of pressure or opportunities on other skills, other abilities, whatever you have to look at things like, well, how do we judge? Do we bring an appraiser with us? Do we bring in a hireling appraiser that can fall behind us and look at all this stuff on the moment and tell us what's junk or what's not? You could potentially, if you wanted to do a specialist type thing like Lamentations of the Flame Princess did with the Thief, maybe that could be a skill. And it becomes valuable because how much you carry is very limited. So knowing that the tapestry that you think is really finely made is actually fairly common and cheap, but this other small thing is worth a lot of money, there's a lot of stuff there. And it gives also reasons to come back. It gives reasons for them to come back into the dungeon. All right. On the desk is a miniature statue of the same god whose likeness is found throughout the ruined monastery. This statuette has been carved from pumice. It's got a couple of drawers in the desk. There is a needle trap. It will kill you if you fail your save to poison, but you do get +3 on the save because it's, what do they say? It's only a small amount of poison. In the locked drawer is a small pouch with some gems and a little bit of money and a parchment. The parchment is a Cure Light Wound spell. There is an attached sitting room. We got some goblets worth 50 gold piece each. Some wine worth 80 gold pieces a bottle. Everything's fragile. 20% chance they break anytime any character carrying them is involved in a violent situation. And this is another thing, going back to what I just said. You've got this stuff. How do you get it out of there? We were talking about a minute ago about, oh, you have a bulky tapestry. That might be tough to carry. But now you have these bottles and glasses. They're worth not a lot, but you don't know. Maybe you think they're worth a lot more than they actually are. But they're still, if you can get a couple of them out, they're going to give you some coin. But how do you get them out without breaking them? And you can have some fun moments with that. It's like in some of the battles that will definitely happen after this, when you start hearing or feeling the glass cracking and smashing as something knocks into you. Okay, and then we have the cleric's chamber, which has a table, a bed, and several chairs are visible in the room. Seated at the table, a hunched and scrawny figure is apparently writing on a sheet of parchment. That is Moray Vacco. Lens him and cleanse him, Vacco. Little Chronicles of Riddick deep cut. Am I the only one that likes that movie? Right, people like that movie, right? I love that movie. Talk about world building. They do a lot of world building with very economically in that building, in that movie. Moray's got a mace +1. It's always at his side. He's also always wearing his plate mail. He will fight to the death. And we get a little background on Mr. Vacco. He's degenerate and filthy, thoroughly chaotic. He has stayed so long with the goblins that he's even begun to resemble them. His skin has taken on a gray hue, and he has filed his teeth to points. A handsome man, Mr. Vacco, apparently. And I don't know why my green screen's failing at times. Or OBS's ability to chroma key my green screen. But I shan't bother with it now. Okay, let's see. He's the last survivor, one of the last, of the black-hearted cult that founded the monastery centuries ago. Lacking human followers, he has gathered a congregation of evil monsters. He provides the monsters quote-unquote spiritual guidance and quote-unquote moral leadership. And they provide him protection, food, and an occasional prisoner to be sacrificed to his iniquitous deity. The parchment on Moray's desk is covered with foul chants in an ancient tongue. Hidden beneath his bed is a long locked box containing 120 silver pieces. Okay, so a bunch of money, an elven cloak, and a bottle filled with a potion of invisibility. The key to the box, the key to a couple of the other rooms, and a key to the locked desk drawer in the other room are on a ring on his belt. So some nice things if you can get in here and deal with him. Gosh, it's so hard to ignore when the things are going kooky, but I'm going to try to press on. Next, we come upon a metal forging shop. 4 large furnace fires burn along the west wall of this large room. The air is sooty and smoky. The fires are heating various pieces of metal, which are being forged into sword blades and spearheads. Working in this forge are 8 hobgoblins, 1 bugbear, and a very dirty dwarf, imprisoned by a ball and chain attached to his ankles. We've got a bugbear, 8 hobgoblins, and Gareth Ironhand, who is a 2nd level dwarf. The bugbear's got a large club. The hobgoblins have short swords. The dwarf wears a leather apron and carries a larger hammer. Larger than what? We do not know. Suffice it to say, it is large. Okay, let's see. So this is where I guess is another one of those nice things I like, because they're talking about how one of the things here is these hobgoblins and goblins and everything who are building up an army to try to take down Guido's fort. So it makes sense that we've seen in a couple places where they've had supplies, and now we see here's how they are manufacturing weapons. They are showing it, and then it gives you more the feeling that stuff is happening. They're not just static, right? People are working. This is a workplace that is being used. It's not just some guys who are waiting to be killed, even though in reality they're waiting to be killed, but they're doing stuff. They've got work to do. Okay, when the characters enter the room, the bugbear and the hobgoblins immediately drop what they're doing and attack. The dwarf does the same as soon as he catches sight of the party, but he directs his attack toward the monsters. He throws his hammer at the bugbear and snatches up a second hammer with which to beat the nearest hobgoblin. So there you go, right? So you come in, Gareth sees his moment and takes it, throwing his one hammer at the bugbear and then trying to smash the hobgoblins into putty. The Foundry is being used to manufacture weapons for the army, now being recruited. The dwarf has been a prisoner for nearly a year. His skill as a smith has kept the hobgoblins from killing him. Given the chance, he fights savagely for his freedom and offers to join the party for the rest of the adventure if they so desire. Assuming that the PCs are victorious in this battle and that they free the dwarf, he takes a shield for one of the dead hobgoblins, becoming AC 6, but his hammer remains his weapon of preference. Alright. So you can get another party member, and by the way, if you would happen to lose a party member earlier on, this could be a chance where you could bring somebody back. I mean, potentially you could lose a PC just in this encounter. So now you could either have an extra hired hand, so to speak, or a replacement PC if you need one. All right, we have the dwarf cell. We have a Goblin Arena. So we got to read what the Goblin Arena is about. Torches placed on the walls at frequent intervals light this huge chamber. 2 massive stone columns rise from the arena floor to support the roof. The arena floor is 10 feet below the level of the hallway. Lying in a circle in the center of the arena and hardly recognizable from the upper deck are 4 bodies. All right, so what are we doing with 4 bodies lying in the middle there, right? Gotta be something. Hold on, just try something really quick because it's driving me nutty. Oh no, that wasn't it at all. Let's see, I want to do. Why is this? Boy, everything is going wonky for me today. Hold on, pick. Oh, that's not it. All right, I'm just going to switch. You know what? Beep. Take me out of the picture. All right. It's hard to pay attention when I'm having more and more things going wrong, but I'm going to try. Okay. So we got the Goblin Arena. 4 bodies in the upper... 4 bodies hardly recognizable from the upper deck. Looks like there's a couple of wolves here. So if the characters approach for a closer look, they see that all the bodies have been pierced by many arrows, but they have not been dead for long. As the characters approach, 2 shadowy forms advance from behind one of the columns to stand by the bodies and growl menacingly at the PCs. These are 2 wolves trained as war dogs. Alright, so this is kind of cool. Dwarves were trained by the party of adventurers now lying dead upon the arena floor. The canines are very loyal creatures remaining here to guard their masters. The dogs look scrawny and underfed. Very nice. Okay, so here it looks like we have some options here. Depending on what the PCs do, they can potentially recruit, in a sense, these war dogs. Certainly, the PCs can attack the dogs if they want, but the dogs do not attack the characters unless one of them actually touches one of the dead bodies. If the party advances to the corpses, the dogs growl and bristle, but slowly back away as long as the characters remain calm and do not disturb the bodies. If a character speaks to the dogs in a calm voice and offers them food, they both eat hungrily. From that moment on, they regard the person who fed them as their master or mistress, even to the point of letting that individual examine the bodies of their former masters. So, much like the not quite as against the grain as the 2 ladies, if you go in there and you just go in, swords a-blazing, and want to search the bodies and just kill the dogs, you can do that, and you'll win. You'll potentially lose some of your resources, but maybe bigger than that, you'll lose potentially recruiting these animals to your cause. let's see what these bodies have on them. Looks like the thief, one of them's got a short sword +1 and a dagger. One was a magic user that had a ring of protection +1. No coins. The dogs have been trained to obey the following commands: kill, stay, fetch. Is that it? Oh, and guard. And you can have some fun with trying to figure out if they do happen to tame the critters. You could have some fun with figuring out how to get those to work. The command words I'm talking about here. You know, if you're in the middle of something heated, you can have whoever the dogs have imprinted on is, attack, fight. You're trying to figure out, oh yeah, kill, and then, the dogs go. Could be some fun. Some fun could be had. Supply room. So we got some boxes and stuff. Oh, wait a minute. What's it say? Oh, please. Thank you. Moving clockwise around the room. Okay, just some stuff. So they could pick up some rope, which could be very useful later on. A whole bunch of cloaks, iron spikes, a bunch of backpacks, poles, 10 foot long, of course, naturally, and 100 small sacks. And this is another one of those caches that if the party destroys, they can get some experience because they are setting back the efforts of the Hobgoblin King. Just fixing my glasses there momentarily. All right, so we have the dining hall. The doors are locked. There are 4 goblins in there. Let's see. If the characters enter this room before they enter the kitchen, then one round after the characters enter the room, the door to the kitchen swings open. 2 very small goblins carrying a large empty tray stroll in. They squeak with fright at the sight of the intruders and rush back from whence they came to alert 2 other goblins in the kitchen. All 4 then rush into the hall to alert the guards in room 57, which is something on another page. And the guards will appear in 3 rounds. If the characters have already been to the kitchen, the goblins will already have alerted the guards. Okay. So we got the dining hall, then we have the kitchen that's kind of connected. There's a large oven in the kitchen, 2 cook stoves, some bowls, etc., etc. We've got a Pagan Temple. In this room, 7 sets of bare wooden benches face a raised dais upon which, or is it dais or dais? I can never recall. Upon which sits the likeness of the same hideous god encountered several other times. This statue is carved from pumice rather than granite. So there's a couple of gems in the statue. Each is a fist-sized stone worth 300 gold pieces. Each of the gems is hooked to an elaborate trap which is sprung unless removed by a thief. And each gem must be removed individually. The trap is sprung. Some robber flies come out of the mouth of the statue, which drops open. And then there you can also get into a small secret chamber, which I believe is the interior of that trap. We've got a ready room. A group of goblins and hobgoblins are seated around 2 tables, 3 wooden benches. A few coins are scattered about the tabletop. So we got 4 hobgoblins and say 4 goblins. If the party attacks, one of the hobgoblins will try to slip out the back door to alert the hobgoblins in another room. The other guards will fight a delaying action until reinforcements arrive. It takes 5 rounds for the hobgoblins to arm themselves and run to the fight. So again, right, I always love these things where they give you some concept of the tactics, but also the reasoning behind them. It's not just, they don't tell you what to do, but I think you get a good idea from them saying that, hey, the guards are going to fight a delaying action. I could definitely foresee that, meaning that they're going to be defensive-minded, potentially using actions or whatnot to try to maximize their defense, because they just want to hold you there until they can get numbers and then attack, which should make an interesting challenge for the players if they realize what's happening, or even if they don't. It's a different thing, right? The goblins are going to be, if they are goblins are fighting defensively, meaning they're going to get a slight bump to their armor class. So they might be a little bit harder to hit, and they're not maybe attacking as wildly as they might otherwise. So why is this, right? And it gives a good feel. It's something different tactically. Potentially, I would have those goblins sort of back up make a perimeter. Don't let the fighters get around them, or the thieves get around them, or anybody surround them, and keep moving towards the exit, and then wait for those numbers to come, and then make another push. So you definitely get some sense of a dynamic battlefield with this. All right, so the coins, just some coins. I'm not going to count them. We have an aviary. It's a giant bird cage. Having heard the door open, a flock of brightly colored birds have taken to the air from a number of perches. They utter piercing shrieks as they zoom towards you. These are piranha birds, which we will see at the end of the module in the new monsters section, but there's 8 of them. We have a battle room, no furniture, 2 humans who obviously, so this is not a room where they plan battles, this is a room where there was a battle. The bodies of 2 humans who obviously died violently are sprawled across the floor. One is wearing plate mail and carries a shield and a sword whose blade is broken. The tip of the sword lies across the room from the body. Strapped to his back is a quiver holding a dozen arrows and a longbow. The other dead human is wearing deeply gashed leather armor. A short sword lies on the floor near his body. All right. The longbow is actually a longbow +1. Both corpses show signs of mutilation, having been partially devoured by a Thule in the room next door. In fact, for every turn the party spends in the room, there is a 1 chance in 4, so roll a d4 and look for the 1, that the Thule comes into the room from the secret corridor that connects them. If the Thule charges in, both the PCs and the Thule should check for surprise. Chances are 1 in 2 that if the Thule comes through the secret door, it trips over a 3rd corpse, the invisible body of a dead magic user lying directly in front of the secret door. So that could lead to some nice little comedy there, right? So the Thule comes charging in and then immediately flops down as it trips over an invisible corpse. So that could be kind of funny. Though, obviously there's a 50-50 chance, I guess, of that happen, but that's a nice little comedy there, and might give you a leg up, so to speak, on the Thule. The dead magic user is invisible because of a ring of protection he wears. Do rings of protection cause you to be invisible, or does he have some kind of compound ring of protection and invisibility? The body can only be discovered by using a detect magic spell or by stumbling into it. If the party searches the room, chances are 1 in 5 per character that someone stumbles into the body. If a character states that he or she is searching the room's east wall for secret doors, the character is sure to stumble over the corpse. The magic user's body has no value save the magic ring. That's an interesting ring. I didn't know that rings of protection turned you invisible, but again, maybe it's got 2 effects on it. Okay, we have a lair of the Thule. This is assuming that the Thule didn't come in to fight you already. Let's see, is there anything? The Thule has nothing of value in the room. All right, oh, look at these guys. They got a real slee stack looking character to them. A partial statue. The only item in this room is a large block of pumice. The top half of the block is carved into the likeness of the pagan god encountered elsewhere. The bottom half is still shapeless. All right. Oh yeah, so here, the trapdoors. And I mentioned this at the beginning. This is I don't know if it's a twist or the turn or just the complication in this particular adventure that I think rubs people the wrong way, probably hasn't aged particularly well. And what this is you basically have 40-foot long trapdoors. And these trapdoors are activated when the king, who was in another room, and just because the order of the rooms and the key, we're actually going to get to his room after we get to the page that has the trapdoors in it. Essentially what happens is once he gets off his throne, it activates these trapdoors, essentially making it impossible for the characters to get back. It puts them in I guess the best way I can think of it is the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You got to go forward to go back kind of bit. At the beginning, when they get in the Chocolate Factory and weird things are happening and they all want to leave, and he says, sorry, you can't go backwards to get out. You got to go forwards to get back, kind of thing. And this is pulling that same kind of thing. You know, I would probably think of different ways to do it. Obviously, what they don't want you to be doing a lot of. They don't. I guess obviously they don't want you to be exiting and entering after a certain point. They want you to just whatever state you are in, you're gonna do this thing with the Hobgoblin King, and then you're gonna go down into the deeper dungeons, and that's basically it. And they've of course made it so that it's basically far enough, or they're large enough that how are you going to get over it, particularly when you're low level? You might have a fly spell, but you're probably only going to have one fly spell. So what do you do with everyone else? You're going to have rope, but how do you get the rope? Just the logistics become really difficult, so that the practical end result is that you're either going to trigger the trap yourself and fall down and slide down the chute, or even if you manage to not trigger it or to save or do something so that you don't, you're going to end up in a situation in which you now have this giant slide, and there's really nothing else to do but to go down the slide. So it really is kind of a forced, one of those sort of things where, hey, we're gonna funnel you towards this next bit, and there's nothing you can do about it. And here they go into the details. It's 300 foot down. You can slide through the chute. You will take some damage, but it's meant to be like one of those Hollywood, Goonies slides where the sides are really smooth, but so you won't really hurt yourself too much. You're just going to slide down and you can go, woo, and you'll land at the next level. But first, we must get to the Hobgoblin King. So we get to the Hobgoblin Hall. Got a bunch of chairs and stuff in it. There's not really much going on. We get some sleeping quarters, 14 filthy bunks. These are empty. There's another set of sleeping quarters that are occupied with 14 hobgoblins. And they've got some valuables. It's just some money. Let's see. Then we get to the Hall of the Hobgoblin King. I am the Hobgoblin King. A huge hobgoblin is seated on the throne at the south end of the chamber. One hobgoblin bodyguard is standing to each side of the throne. 4 other hobgoblins are seated around a huge fire burning in the center of the room. 2 more hobgoblins are drawing liquid from a keg in the southwest corner of the room. Apparently, some kind of party is going on because the atmosphere in the room is festive. So we got the Hobgoblin King, 2 bodyguards, 6 regulars. Hobgoblin regulars. The personal bodyguards, one of them has a spear +1. The king himself is wearing a ring of fire resistance. Let's see. When the doors to the room are open, the Hobgoblin King is going to shout a warning and order his soldiers to attack. As long as the king is alive, the hobgoblins fight with a morale of 10. If the king is killed, they fight with a morale of 8. So these are probably going to more or less fight to the death unless you get lucky, because 10 and 8 are pretty good. It's a 2d6 roll, and what you got to roll was, if you roll under it, I think classically, right, that they stick around. So the higher those morales, the harder it's obviously to roll over it. So even without the Hobgoblin King, it's pretty good. More than half odds they're going to keep hanging around to fight. But of course, the dice do what the dice do. The fire in the center of the room is heating a large kettle of boiling liquid, which vaguely resembles soup. In fact, it is soup, but characters find it rancid and foul tasting, though not poisonous. The smoke of the fire is vented through a large hole in the ceiling. Okay, each of the 8 hobgoblins has a belt with some cash. The hobgoblin with the one with the magic spear has the keys to the chest in the bodyguard chamber. The bodyguard chamber has 2 soft beds, a table, 2 chairs, and a chest. The chest is locked, but that one bodyguard with the magic spear has the key. Inside is some more cash. The bedroom of the king, large plush bed. Got some battle scenes, some tapestries worth 50 gold pieces. But as I was mentioning before about tapestries, probably pretty bulky if you're using kind of encumbrance rules to take with you. But they're there, worth some money. Then the treasure room. 2 large chests. All right, what's in the chests? Each chest, again, trapped with a poison needle. Let's see, these... All right, this one, okay, so apparently these are stronger, or there's more poison on these needles, because this one's just a straight save. The first chest has a bunch of money. The second chest has 3 bottles of potions of healing and 1 bottle of potion of invisibility and a pearl necklace. I won't start singing the ZZ Top song, and I won't get into other meanings of that particular phrase, but it is worth 1,000 gold pieces. But the only magic stuff, I guess, is the spear +1 and that ring of fire resistance, which I guess is not really explained, but of course they're setting you up for what you will find beneath the monastery. All right, so of course the assumption is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you're going to try to leave. The trapdoors will have sprung. You will either just fall down, or part of your party will fall down, or maybe all of you will avoid falling down, and you look and see that, my gosh, this pit trap, or this slide trap, this chute, a giant game of chutes and ladders, this particular chute is 40 feet wide, so no real way around it. We're just going to have to go down. So, you go down. Please, somebody let me know in the comments or elsewhere if there have been any parties you've read of who've come up with creative ways to avoid going down. I mean, in the spirit of adventure, assuming you're not totally beat to heck, you probably want to go down. But, you know, it's just one of those things that they kind of take the choice away from you, or at least they try to very explicitly. Characters gain entrance to this dungeon level by falling through the trapdoors in the corridor outside the chamber of the Hobgoblin King. It takes a steady hand to map this level of the dungeon, and you can see in part 1 when we went through the dungeon level maps, the map of this level 2 is pretty, it's pretty crazy. They go through a bunch of stuff here. If you want, if there's a dwarf in the party, or if you recruited Iron Hand, I think was his name, the dwarf from the blacksmithing room, and he wants to check the slopes. You can check the slopes at different areas. I'm not sure what that actually does for you in a practical manner. And there's also a note about when you're describing these things, you don't need to be super detailed, and about angles and things. Sharp angles, you can talk about gentle curves, things like that, but you know, the characters aren't equipped with the kind of gear they would need to make exacting measurements anyway, and it really doesn't matter too much. Now, at the bottom of this whole thing, they talk about how this level's never traveled by the hobgoblins. In fact, they have no knowledge of the creatures living here or the make of the dungeon. The creatures on this level are crazed, half-starved lot, living desperate and hungry existence. They are quick to attack any potential meal. Many packs of rats scuttle about, living in tiny holes in the walls of the tunnels. The rats are the staple food of the residents of this area. The rats are used to running for their lives, so they never attack a character. You might mention occasionally that the party hears the rats squeaking or scratching, but the party never actually sees them. Desperate for food, certain creatures roam the corridors. The chance of encountering a group of these wandering monsters is calculated as usual at the end of every 2 turns. If an encounter is indicated, roll 1d6 and compare. Okay, so we'll take a look at that table, because why the heck not? That is why we're here. Let's see. So we've got 6 options here. 2d4 piranha birds, 1d4 robber flies, a lone thule, 1d4 bugbears, 1 or 2 ogres, and 1d4 berserkers, which I'm assuming this picture of the shirtless Viking-looking guy who looks like what Charles Manson might have looked like if you gave him a sword and set him loose upon Beverly Hills would be a berserker. All right, so let's go through. I want to try to kind of stick to the highlights here. I'm not trying to be particularly exhaustive at every single space. But this one, you know, we got the octagon room, which automatically has my interest. After bumping and sliding down the chute, you land on the floor of an 8-sided room, a wooden door on each side. There are 2 berserkers in here. One of them is wearing leather armor +1. So you notice throughout this, they are giving you chances if you're canny, obviously if you win these things and search and do a good job of getting some magical equipment to hopefully put you in as good a stead as possible once you get to the dragon. All right. Just checking on my numbers. Looks like everything is going. OBS is showing that I'm streaming green. My CPU's not exploding. It's because I'm trying to record it locally now because I'm trusting nothing for this. So just wanted to double check that. All right. These two berserkers are part of a group of humans who have been wandering through the labyrinths of this level for many years. They're probably clearly not very bright. They have forgotten any human language they ever knew, communicating in a series of grunts, hoots, and shouts. All right, so that's some fun stuff to play with. Let's see. Oh, whoops, I forgot a small detail. So they're not in there to start. So once the players arrive, 1d6 rounds after the characters land in the room, one of the doors, we just roll randomly which one, enter, and then the two berserkers run into the room. And they attack on sight. But I guess that means that potentially if you move quickly, you could get out of that room before they come in. Though I would probably roll which door they're coming out of. That way, if the party chooses the door that the berserkers were going to come out through, they would meet them in the hallway. Let's see. Anything else here? All the doors in this room are identical, and since the corridors beyond the doors are maze-like, the party might become confused. They might find themselves back in this room over and over again. As exiting one door, twisting and turning in the corridors, they may have no idea which doors they have come in or out of. So basically, map the heck out of this place if you don't want to get lost. Basically, the only way to mark a door is to actually carve or paint something on it. If the characters try to keep track of the doors by leaving markers in the room, the markers disappear almost immediately after the characters leave the room. If the gelatinous cube doesn't come through on a cleaning trip, some other monster passes through and drags away whatever the characters may have left behind. Okay, so other than mapping it yourself, if you want to try to mark stuff, you got to mark it with something that is more longer lasting than, say, leaving a breadcrumb, because something's just going to come and eat the breadcrumb. Or take it away, or do something else. And of course, you could have fun if something was coming around and just moving the things around without doing them, and really just confuse the heck out of the players. But that would be cruel, right? We GMs, we are never cruel. We get a bugbear's cave, 3 bugbears, got some clubs, they got nothing of value. A large cavern, and they're nice enough to tell us that nothing of interest is in this large cavern. So we can move right on to the Chamber of the Man-Eaters. This large cavern appears to be empty. The ceiling is high, and the far end curves out of sight. All right, there's a lair of ghouls in here, 4 of them to be precise. They're squatting around a pile of miscellaneous bones. Unless the characters are very noisy, you check normally for a surprise. In any case, the ghouls attack the characters on sight. All right, so in the garbage, got some coins, got a necklace, and a battered, corroded sword that's actually a +2 short sword. So don't judge a short sword by its battered, corroded cover. And it keeps its +2 bonus even if it's not clean. So it is a usable +2 right off the bat. You do not have to take it back to get it mended. You can actually start +2 short swording people right from jump. You just have to be lucky, smart, or I guess you can't even use detect magic, because I believe it says the sword is not recognizable as a magic weapon unless considerable time is spent scraping the corrosion off the blade. Does that mean, I would imagine though, that doesn't mean a detect magic wouldn't work, right? So maybe someone wouldn't be able to examine it and recognize, aha, this is Sting, but they might still sense a magical aura, I'm guessing, maybe, I don't know. I suppose it's up to you how you want to play that. Excuse me. We have a secret chamber, 2 secret doors leading into this room, and a secret door connecting this room to another room is opened by rotating a small outcrop of rock in the center of the door. That's awfully complex for the kind of crazed creatures that are here. I don't know if they're hinting at the fact that maybe this was something a little bit more than just a labyrinth of Looney Tunes at some point. In any case, there's some sturges in here, which are nasty. There are 8 of them. Doesn't look like there's anything else. Let's see, there's a secret treasure room. It's got 3 small wooden chests, each fitted with a sturdy lock. Are these poisoned? Does not appear that they are. So we got a bunch of coins and gems, a silver pitcher and 6 goblets, a fabulous jeweled necklace, a bracelet, a bejeweled dagger, not magic, but worth some coin, and a gold serving tray. The third chest has a bottle of diminution and poison, 2 bottles of potion of healing, a sword +1, a suit of plate mail +1. Ooh, that's nice. And another ring of fire resistance. Boy, so now I want to say we've gotten 2 rings of fire resistance if you got the one off the Hobgoblin King and then you're lucky enough to get this one. So that's giving you not necessarily advantage over the dragon, but at least you're getting maybe more of a survivable chance against the dragon. Let's see. And we have a Cavern of the Giant Shrews. 3 of them. A silent spell can blind them. That's cool. Other than that, it's just the shrews. We got an owlbear den, so we get to face an owlbear, or not, if we don't want to. Let's see. The owlbear is jealously possessive of its den and will attack and attempt to maul any creatures that stroll through the entrance. The bear will be resting at the spot marked with an X. Alright, not really concerned about that. When it attacks, the owlbear will direct both its claw attacks and its bite to the same character, repeating the attack until that character has been killed before selecting a new victim. Ouch. So, for all those GMs who say, well, you know, I'm going to take this monster, he's just going to spread his attacks around. Well, this is saying, don't do that. This owlbear is mean in business. He's going to take one guy and just rip it to shreds as much as he can until it is dead. And then go on to the second one. It will not pursue characters beyond the mouth of its cave, so you can... Oh, if it has already killed one. If not, it will pursue until it slays a character. Ouch. So either it's coming until it kills one person or you kill it. Once it kills someone, it'll drag it back to its lair. That's a rough one. I am obviously, ideally, you're not here for the owlbear, right? So you look inside, maybe you get a sense of it, you detect some traces of it, and you decide to leave it the heck alone. Because yeah, that could be hurt, particularly if the wrong person's in front. Because I'm assuming the lead person's probably the one that's going to get chomped on, and then it's probably the one that will get most of the wrath of the owlbear. So that I've seen some times, and it happened in the group I was running, where the one of the back row, magic users got sort of cocky at one point and started taking the lead because they thought kind of they had stuff under control, and it wasn't an owlbear, but something similar happened where they didn't kill them, but they got kind of worked over. I think it put a little bit of that reality check back in them that maybe they shouldn't just be taking point, that they got a little too comfortable and almost paid the price. And this is certainly one of those things that if you were getting a little bit cocky, maybe you think you're strolling around and so you decide to take point for a minute. Yeah, that owlbear den might be the wrong minute. The berserkers have their own hovel. A large human sits on a tall stone chair, pathetically resembling a throne. He is wrapped in a tattered purple carpet, having donned it like a robe. 4 other men kneel at his side. Wow, what a tender image. All right. Oh, here we go. Look at it. He's got a name. Was it Derry Winky III, Emperor of the Lower World? He does have a shield +2, and of course he's crazy. But his voice does boom commandingly. If he catches sight of the characters, even if they are simply walking past the mouth of his cave, who seeks an audience with Derry Winky III? Kneel, peons! If the characters do not fall immediately to their knees, the Emperor flies into a rage. Impudent swine! You shall know the wrath of the Emperor of the Lower World! Guards, arrest them! At this command, the 4 kneeling berserkers, followed closely by the Emperor, rise and assault the party in full berserk fury. So that's one option. If the characters kneel before Derry Winky, he is mollified for the time being. He asks his quote-unquote subjects if they are happy and healthy, and why they seek an audience with his illustrious self. Judge the characters' responses very carefully. Remember that the berserkers truly believe they are the custodians of a mighty underworld empire. They are sure to be offended if the characters do not behave like dutiful and respectful servants. If the characters play the proper role, however, the Emperor is protective of their welfare. For example, if the characters were to state that the nearby owlbear is fomenting revolt, the Emperor and his berserker subjects would march to slay the rebellious monster. So this is some great stuff right here. Derry Winky III, man, I would hope, if all possible, I would try to find a way to get him out of here for future adventures somehow. Somehow he follows after the party if the party were successful and wanders out into the greater world try to carve out a new part of his empire. I think the other part is, again, playing with your expectations. You could just be defiant or cocky and just get into yet another fight with these creatures. Of course, again, potentially getting members of your party hurt or killed, draining resources. Or you could try to read the moment and play the part of a dutiful subject and then send them off to the owlbear. And who knows who wins that particular battle, but either way, you're kind of getting rid of a threat. And potentially, if the owlbear wins, then you don't have to deal with those berserkers showing up anywhere else. Or if you have to come back through there. And of course, if they win, the owlbear's gone, and maybe you've earned some small favor with the Emperor of the Lower World. Behind the throne, a small wooden chest contains the Empire's treasury. The chest is locked, and Derry Winky lost the key years ago, but the lock may be picked or the chest smashed. The chest contains, just a little bit of some coins. 12 platinum pieces, 45 gold pieces, 108 silver pieces. Not a vast hoard, but they're I can feel it. The Empire of the Lower World, they're on the up. They're on the come. They're rising. The days of their glorious splendor have yet to arrive. Now we'll talk about the gelatinous janitor. This spot in the corridor is where the party stumbles across a gelatinous cube. This is where I would have just taken that out and had it wandering around as just a random encounter, instead of plunking it in one place, because it's supposed to be moving around. But here they've decided, I guess presumably, so they want to make sure that the party finds it, right? So it's one of those things that we have this gelatinous cube in here, we think it's fun, or I don't know, it's just very much a part of things. We want to make sure they do it. So instead of putting it in a random encounter where potentially they could not see it at all, we want to make sure they see it, so we're going to plunk it here. I would maybe think of another way to do that, or even just say something like, well, it's on the random encounter list. If you don't encounter randomly, it's going to be here. Something like that. In any case, it's here. There's not much inside it, though. 12 gold pieces, 47 silver pieces. We've got a well. We've got a second octagon room. We have a pit trap. Let's see. And this, again, and interesting, because it's not a save. It's a roll under dex to avoid the pit trap. So, yet again, using a roll under attribute test for avoiding the pit trap. And if they fall, they take 1d6 points of damage. One of those steam vents, we saw a steam vent before. Looks like this one's got it's also got a 10% chance of erupting, and it's got a swarm of steam weevils and a lava lizard. I think both of these are also new creatures, so they are given a complete description in the new monster section at the back of the menu. And there's a note about, let's see, the steam weevils are going to immediately attack basically as soon as the party enters the cavern, but the lava lizard is going to hang back in its little corner and only attack if the party goes near it. There's an underground stream. A chute of rapids is about 100 feet on the right. The rapids spill into a placid stream before you, which meanders out of sight to the left. Stretching 35 feet on both sides of you is a dry shelf. This stream is the only means of escape from this level of the dungeon, other than climbing back up the chute that spills into the room. The stream leads to dungeon level 3, of course. If the characters stay on the shelf, there is a normal chance to encounter a level 3 wandering monster. Alright, so if you hang around there, something from the lower depths could come up. Let's see, greenish phosphorescent lichen grow along the walls, bounding the stream, allowing characters to see 100 feet away. If the party tries to move upstream, the force of the rapids is too strong and it knocks them back to their starting spot within 1 to 3 rounds. Doesn't do any damage, it's just to make clear, yeah, you're not getting out that way. Moving downstream is relatively simple. Most of the stream is only 1 or 2 feet deep. The bottom is smooth sand and fine gravel. In a few places along the 500 feet leading to dungeon level 3, might be a little bit high for halflings, otherwise it's fine. There's no danger of drowning or being washed downstream. Along the stream are 5 more dry shelves where the party may like to camp or rest. If they do, they encounter no wandering monsters. This area is one of the few places the characters don't have to worry about combat. Alright, so I mean, it makes you wonder how those berserkers, before they lost all language and just went absolutely crazy, didn't just realize, oh, why don't we just follow the stream down? But given what's down there, maybe they had some sense of self-preservation and elected to stay where they were. Clearly, if the party thinks about it, they can try to rest a spell here. Not on the initial shelf, but further down. And then at the bottom of that, we get to dungeon level 3. All right, let's see about, we got wandering monsters. I believe it's also one every 2 turns. We do a check. We've got, as far as what one may encounter in dungeon level 3, we've got the lava lizard, one of them, 2d6 kobolds, 1 swarm of the steam weevils, 1d4 giant bats, a crab spider, or 2d6 piranha birds. And we get to the landing, illuminated by the greenish phosphorescent glow. A flat shore is visible about 100 feet ahead. On the left, a small humanoid figure stands on the shore. And then there's an alcove with a couple more in it. These are kobolds. They're on guard duty, but they're kind of slacking off, so you do have an opportunity to sneak up on them somewhat. So you can try to get through this via stealth and maybe a surprise attack, ambush, and then take care of these guys before they go back and try to warn others, which they will do. So again, right there, given some tactical oomph, which is when if the initial guard that's on the beach gets word, it'll kind of call out, the other 2 will wake up. I think they will try to run out and get help. They will run through the kobold storage room and lair, where there are 4 more kobolds. And then there you get to the Bridges of Death, which is a really interesting encounter space. I will read the description here. This large chamber is split by a 20-foot wide crevasse. The crevasse is 300 feet deep, and at its bottom flows a river of molten lava. Obviously, it's quote-unquote curtains for any creature who falls into it. Right? So you fall off those bridges into the crevasse, yeah, you're dead. And by the way, not only are you dead, but remember, you've fallen 300 feet into molten lava, so, you know, that's you know, a Smeagol in the Ring Golem territory, right? Anything you carry is going to melt. So you might have picked up some nice gear if that fighter who's got a long, you know, sword +1, and he's got the plate mail +1 and a shield +3. If he drops off that bridge, you're not getting that stuff back. It is all gonzo, right? So tough. The south side of the crevasse is guarded by 5 kobolds at all times. If any kobold the party encountered on, back basically before this, had a chance to escape, an alarm has been sounded. All the kobolds from Caverns 88 and 89, just further in, as well as any kobolds escaping the landing or cavern, have arrived to support the 5 kobold guards. If no alarm has been given, the leader of the 5 guards blows a brass horn he carries at his side as soon as the intruders are sighted. Reinforcements arrive within 3 rounds. Excuse me. So, if you haven't been super careful, there are going to be a bunch of those kobolds going to be waiting now here for you. And I think 5, and we get in the other rooms, they mentioned how many are there. So 5 plus some number. And remember, we have these bridges that are between the party and these kobolds. They got to figure out how to get across. And it's an interesting puzzle, because you want to get across quickly before, assuming you get there. If reinforcements are already there, maybe, I don't know what you got to do. But if you're able to get there ahead of the reinforcements, you want to try to get across as fast as possible. At the same time, as we'll see, if you get hit while you're on the bridge, there's a chance you fall over. Any character or kobold who is wounded while on the bridge must check against their dexterity. Again, that's a rolling under, so another roll under attribute test. If the check fails, individual is knocked off balance and falls into the chasm. For the purposes of this roll, all the kobolds have a dexterity of 10. So any kobold has a 50-50 chance of just going over if you hit them, even if it's for 1 hit point. Conversely, a character gets a chance to roll into their dex. But of course, if you're the beefy fighter who maybe didn't have a ton of dex, it doesn't matter how much. It's not about how many hit points they got. It's just a matter of the fact that you are wounded, which assuming in this case means you've just taken damage from a hit. And then they will kind of start to wrap around you. If called by the horn, reinforcements from room 86, which is the storage room, will approach the bridges from the north. Reinforcements from the cavern, that was 88, which is the Chieftains Council room. Was that correct? Yes. If called by the horn, reach the bridges from the south. Reinforcements from room 89, which I don't know what it is yet because it's on another page, reach the bridge through the secret doors, exiting at the southern end of the bridge. So they kind of start to get around you, kind of forcing you potentially onto the bridge. Note that when the kobold chieftain arrives, the morale of all kobolds is 8. So basically, if you get there, you're going to have the potential for a lot of trouble coming down on you, hemming you into a spot that's got a death trap in the middle of it. Not a lot of fun. The Chieftains Council room. This is where the kobold chief and his bodyguards are hanging out. So he's got 6 bodyguards, right? So we started with 5 in another room. If the chief gets called, him and 6, that's another 7. He's got a nice belt that's worth some cash. But otherwise, yeah, they just got a kettle of beer made from fish heads. Sounds tasty. In 89, we've got 12 more kobolds. And that's about it. So again, right, so depending on what's happening in the other room, you got 12 more coming in. So that could be a really bad encounter. I almost think fall back, maybe to the water. I'm not exactly sure what you do there. If you don't get there in good time, I guess this is where you hope you got a lot of arrows and distance weapons and just try to force them to come at you across the bridge and not them. But it could just be a stalemate. So if I'm the kobolds, I don't need to go across that bridge. And if I'm the party, I don't want to go across that bridge unless maybe I can run across it. Did they say how long the bridge is? I'm sure they did, but I don't recall. Let's see. Oops, 20 foot wide. So you can get across there in one go. I guess that's another reason. If you get there in good order, you can get across before they kind of block it off with their bodies. Because definitely don't want that part of it. What am I doing? Oh, acrobat, why are you teasing me? Hey, stop doing that. Whoops. Oh, boy. What happened here? Oh, no. Okay, go back here. All right. How do I get back to my reading view? Was it F9? Hold on a second. So, of course, I go. There we go. All right, so view. Read mode. There we go. Okay. But now I have the same problem I had before. Okay. Whew. Fun with PDFs. Here's an empty corridor, and then a chamber of darkness. Utter blackness consumes a 10-foot wide stretch of the corridor wall. You can see nothing but the darkness. Let us read on, because this seems like an interesting little puzzle. Many years ago, a very evil cleric met an untimely end in this cavern. Because he was slain by a very good cleric, a strange magical phenomena took place. The black force of the evil cleric's soul took possession of the cavern, causing total darkness. It's kind of like the that spot on, was it Dagobah, right, where Yoda sends Luke to go down because there's some kind of evil, there's some sort of dark side of the force area down there. Kind of makes sense. Interesting that it's tied with being killed by a very good cleric. One would think maybe that would prevent such a thing. But I kind of like that idea that there are phenomena that can take place when kind of, I don't know, maybe great or sort of pinnacles of good or darkness are defeated or whatnot. It could leave an imprint on the environment. If the characters thrust a torch into the dark area, the torch seems to disappear, but if they withdraw it, it burns brightly. Only a light spell can illuminate the room. There's nothing dangerous or harmful in the room, and in fact, characters can find valuable treasure here. If they have no magical light, however, they must explore the chamber in darkness. For each character entering the room, there is a 15% chance per turn a character locates the skeleton of the dead cleric and the backpack he carried. This chance is cumulative, so if 3 characters search the room, there is a 45% chance one of them discovers the corpse and backpack. The backpack has got some scrolls, 2 Cure Light Wounds, 1 Bless, 1 Magic Missile, 1 Phantasmal Force, 1 Fireball. And then we have some potions, 2 doses of a Potion of Healing, 2 doses of a Potion of Growth, and 2 doses of a Potion of Invisibility. So, some good stuff in there, but you got to be willing to put in the time. I like that more people start the search, raises your odds of finding it, but it'd be very interesting if you rolled a random encounter while they're doing that, since the darkness is going to play heck with it, with everybody trying to do stuff. Could be a great kind of moment, sort of half comedy, half deadly serious, with the thing, people just swinging around, potentially hitting other team members or hitting nothing in the darkness. We got some empty caverns. Then we have some kobold-guarded cliffs. All right. These 2 corridors expand and then drop away in 50-foot cliffs and rock outcroppings stud the walls. A single kobold is on guard at the top of each cliff, which means 2 total. They're lying prone and they're watching the corridors below that approach from where we just came from, the empty caverns. If the party sneaks up on them from behind, add +2 to the kobold's chance of being surprised. If the party is below the kobolds, add +2 to the character's chance of being surprised, and no chance for the kobolds to be surprised. If a thief tries to climb one of the cliffs, the kobold on top waits until the thief is halfway up and then drops stones at him or her. Roll to hit normally. Each stone hitting its mark does 1d4 points of damage. The thief must check against dexterity if struck. It's interesting that they're not using saves here, but they are continually using these, having you roll under your attribute. Because that, I would have thought, would have been a clear saving throw, but they're putting it as a roll under dex. So I'll have to keep this, I'll have to remember this, because this is definitely, if people ask examples of modules using roll under attributes, I will definitely have to point them to Horror on the Hill. Okay, if the roll fails, the thief falls. Consider his fall to be from halfway up the cliff, 1d6 points of damage for each 10 feet. So that's a lot of damage. So if you're a thief and you're going to climb up there, man, be careful. Because if your thief's anything like my thief, I think my thief I was playing in I think it was a Swords and Wizardry game. I think at 4th level he had 12 hit points, something like that. So, and this is, you could be starting at 1st, 2nd, 3rd level. I'm not sure at this point what level you would be if you started at 1st, but man, that easy to die doing that. Characters below may shoot arrows or other missiles at the kobolds, but the kobolds have an AC of 3 because the cliff shields them. I almost figure just run through, because I'm not sure what the kobolds are actually, they don't say what they're guarding, and they don't even say that they're going to give an alarm. They're just kind of there. They'll just take pot shots at you. So maybe the best course of action, if you can think about it as a PC, is just get out of that room. And I guess just hope that they're not warning anybody important ahead of you, but it doesn't seem like they are. This large chamber, so this is a large cavern, this large chamber contains many stalactites and stalagmites, some of which are broken and littering the floor. Okay, that's it. We have a rock slide. It's got a giant rattler, so a big rattlesnake. We have the den of the lava lizards. So there's 2 lava lizards here. And you can walk around them. They're only going to, I guess, attack you if you get too close. Oh, if you just come, I guess if you just, in this case, if you touch them, because they're asleep. Excuse me. All right, the Old Warrior's Cavern. It's obvious this room has been inhabited, presumably by the poor warrior whose skeleton, still clad in plate mail armor, rests on the room's lone chair. A mighty sword lies by the warrior's side. Also visible are a wooden table and a straw pallet bed. Am I the only one who's reminded of Conan the Barbarian, the original movie, when Conan gets in the tomb and then he finds the sort of warrior skeleton on the throne-like chair with the sword? Let's see, he's got 5 arrows +2, plate mail +1, and a sword +1, +3 against dragons. So you definitely want to get that one. And there's a broken longbow. And there's a secret door that leads out of this chamber that's opened by rotating an outcrop of rock. So if you found the other place where you rotated an outcrop of rock, you could presumably find this one by looking for outcrops of rock on the wall and turning it, right? So it's a nice little... They're using the same secret door method, so if you're good about describing it and they find one, then the next time around maybe they'll find it more easily because they've got a sense of how these things are working. And now we get to it. The Dragon's Entry Room. This room is empty except for six small and blackened skeletons on the floor. Those are kobolds, who I guess said the wrong thing when the dragon asked them if it looked fat. The lair of the red dragon. This chamber is huge and dark. You feel an aura of evil, and from the darkness ahead, you can hear deep, slow breathing. The red dragon living in this cavern is quite youthful by dragon standards, but it is still an awesome and terrible opponent. Its lair is connected to the outside by a tunnel nearly a mile long. This is the tunnel, if you recall, that the book said explicitly you can never find it if you're wandering around the surface of the hill. But it's the only way out. But they didn't want you to backdoor to the dragon. The red dragon, he is AC -1. Man, I always love when you got negative armor classes. It's just, I don't know, it's just something cool. See, 7 hit dice, but only 22 hit points, right? So not a crap ton of hit points. 90 feet movement. I'm guessing that's 30 feet flight. Has number of attacks. It's got 2 claws, 1 bite, and it breathes fire. 2 claws are 1d8 each. The bite is 1d8. And the breath weapon is 4 to 32 plus 22. So that is 4d8. 4d8 plus 22. So that's a rough piece of business right there. Let's see what else it's got. He's got some spells. Ventriloquism, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Detect Invisible, Continual Light, and Dispel Magic. And it's funny because they gave you these different ways of getting invisibility, but then of course the dragon can cast Detect Invisible. There is a 10% chance the dragon is asleep when discovered. If the characters encounter the dragon, then escape and stay away for at least 6 turns, there's a 10% again the dragon is asleep when they return. I'm not sure where they could really escape to. I guess they just go back, because I don't think they're going to make it out that tunnel with the dragon still alive. But I guess if you ran into trouble, you decided to go back out into those other caverns, and they come back. If you stay away long enough, the dragon will just go back to sleep again. If some characters invisibly enter the room, the dragon is aware of their presence due to its keen hearing, unless the character is a thief who successfully rolls to move silently, quote unquote. So they did this earlier, right? But they've been kind of giving some love to the thief, right? The thieves can climb these cliffs, but obviously other folk can't. If you're invisible, if you're not a thief, the dragon's going to hear you. But if you are the thief, then you've got a chance at it. It could be interesting if you get there. Thieves, I don't think you have enough, sneak attack or whatever, backstab or whatever to actually kill the thing. But I suppose you have some options if you can make that roll. If the dragon is aware of even one invisible character, it casts Detect Invisible spell. So if anybody gets caught or whatever, it's casting it. So if you have the fighter and the thief are both invisible, the fighter's going to get caught and then spoil whatever the thief was going to do. The dragon is then able to see any invisible creatures, individuals, or objects in the room. As long as the party is not fighting the dragon, it is satisfied, however, merely to keep tabs on those who are supposedly invisible. So it's going to kind of play... it's going to play dumb a little bit. It's going to let you walk around. It's going to let you think like maybe you've got it. So it's sneaky. And when the crafty serpent first becomes aware of the PCs, it does not immediately bake them with its fiery breath. Rather, it uses its ventriloquism spell to create a sound of great roaring and bellowing behind the party. When it is convinced that all the party members are in the room, it chuckles deeply before greeting them with the utmost politeness. It enjoys conversational banter, and since it surely doesn't feel threatened by the presence of a band of mere humans, it may spend 2d6 turns chit-chatting with the PCs. So it's going to use ventriloquism to put a voice or some kind of sound effect, roar behind them, assuming that roar will push the PCs to come into the room, and then it will talk to them. I'm kind of reminded of Smaug and the Hobbit, how it could be chatty, like it wanted to talk a little bit, have some fun, show its superiority. Let's see. The serpent is sitting upon a large collection of coins and other valuable items. It will react very favorably to compliments and flattery, also like Smaug. It will even allow characters to advance and examine the many treasures of its trove if the group is appropriately respectful. The dragon attacks if the characters try to leave the tavern or if the party moves to attack the dragon. In both cases, roll for initiative normally. Note that the dragon always uses his breath weapon as its first attack. So, you have some time to play around with having a little talk with the dragon, but the GM's going to roll, hidden roll, I presume, and that's how many turns it'll sit there and chat with you before it just gets tired and decides to be away with you. Of course, if you decide to attack, then it's on, and if you decide to leave, then it's on. If the characters do not attack the dragon and do not attempt to leave the room, be aware of when the dragon grows weary of the conversation. Its comments should become more curt and impolite, even hostile. If the characters still do not attack within 2 rounds, the dragon attacks anyway. On the first round, the dragon tries to hit the greatest number of characters with its breath weapon. On succeeding rounds, the dragon attacks the rest of the company, the rest of the group in the following way, as explained in the basic rules. It's going to roll a d6. On a 1, 2, or 3, it's going to use its claws and bite attacks. On a 4, 5, or 6, it's using its breath again. Remember, it doesn't have to wait. It's just got a 50-50 chance in any given round. You could get unlucky, and it's just going to be breath, 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 breath. Or maybe you get lucky, and it's using its claws and its bite. But you're definitely getting at least 1 breath in there. So if this is your first dragon, Dungeons & Dragons, you will be sure to get breathed upon. I don't think there's much way around it, unless I suppose you could think of some particularly clever ways to avoid that. If anyone's seen such things, I would love to hear it, but you're probably getting breathed on at least once, and if you're lucky, not a ton of times. And remember, you can subdue the dragon, which they're going to talk about right now. If the players are able to kill or subdue the dragon, they find as much treasure as they can carry. And then there are some magic items. Ring of Protection +1, Wand of Magic Detection, Rod of Cancellation, and a Bag of Devouring. I probably would have the dragon flee at some point if it could. You could really use this to set up kind of, a big bad evil guy, or at least another player in things if the dragon leaves. They don't give it a name. So that might be another thing to do, is give this thing a name, give it a little personality of its own. And then, obviously it's haughty and everything, but I assume if it's getting low there in hit points and it doesn't look like it's doing well here, they're smart, come back and fight another day, and that could be a fun, more adventures. And that it's going to be able to outpace the characters down that long runway tunnel. So once it gets going, it can just get out of there. So I would probably have that do that, but they don't mention it explicitly. But that's probably something that I would do. And then who knows, maybe it would try to burn Guido's fort on its way out, much like Smaug tried to take its vengeance on the lake town for the dwarves showing up. The tunnel exiting the dragon's lair climbs gradually for a mile until it exits at Area 19, which is the spot that you'll never find, theoretically. And then we have some stuff about tying up loose ends and a lovely picture of the docile, subdued dragon swimming behind the boat. And they talk about getting the dragon out, or basically back to Guido's fort. It's too big for the boat, so you can do whatever you want with it, or tell it to swim behind you. Once you get back to Guido's fort, you run back into the sisters, and the sisters want the dragon if you have it. If you remember, there was a bargain you could make with them that gave them basically their choice of any one thing that you got. Their first choice is the dragon. Their second choice is the Rod of Cancellation. If you either don't have them or you didn't make that last deal, they will still try to get it from you. With a glint in her eye and greed in her voice, Rosalinda says to the party, "That old rod of cancellation looks to be in pretty bad, sad shape, but I feel sorry for you, losing your dragon after all your troubles. Tell you what, I'll give you 1,000 gold pieces for the rod, twice what it's worth, at least." In truth, the sisters are willing to pay 5,000 gold pieces for the rod, but only shrewdly bargaining characters can get that much. If they didn't make a deal, there's a guy, or if they don't, either they had the dragon or whatever, if they have the dragon, they didn't make the deal, blah, blah, blah. There is a guy in the Lion's Den Tavern who will offer to buy the dragon from the characters. But it's kind of one of the interesting, they don't cover, well, what if you choose not to do that? I mean, certainly modern players would love to have a dragon. So I'm not sure. I would like to know. I'll have to read more into, if anybody knows what rules there are for what to do with a dragon once it is subdued, besides sell it. I'd love to hear it. If you have any ideas for what you would do, or what you think your players would do, or if you're a player, what you would try to do with a subdued young red dragon, I'd like to hear that too. Kind of, obviously there's sort of Game of Thrones-ish kind of stuff you could do, Daenerys and her dragons, though. In D&D, I believe the maturity cycle for the dragons is very long, so it could be a young dragon for essentially your whole lifetime, I think. Someone could correct me on if they mature much faster than my imagination puts them. And then, you have to feed it and whatnot and keep it out of trouble. So it could be fun. Certainly if you had a stronghold or other spot, maybe you've now got this place where the dragon can hang out. So there's interesting things there. They don't, just a kind of, I think it's just a product of the time that they really don't delve any more into what you could do with this thing other than just sell it to the first guy who asks for it. Now we get to the new monsters. We got the piranha birds, 1 foot long, garishly colored, always hungry for fresh meat. They may have green, blue, red, brown, black, or even purple feathers. Their beaks are sharp and pointed and have razor-like edges, so the bird can stick its beak into the flesh of a creature, bite, and fly away with a snack. Yummy. They can fly with hummingbird-like maneuverability. They can change direction suddenly, and they can hover. They don't like bright sunlight. Then we have steam weevils, which are basically what you expect. It's kind of a swarm. And then we got the lava lizards. They like to be in pools of bubbling lava or close by. And I believe, let's see. Yeah, so if the creature is struck by a non-magical metal weapon, you have to, whoever owns that weapon must make a save versus magic wands, or the weapon melts from the intense heat of the creature's interior. They still get hurt by the hit, so the lava lizard will still take damage, but you lose your weapon through melting. And that is the end. Do you have any questions or comments? Our designers and editors can help. Send your questions to D&D Questions, care of TSR, P.O. Box 756, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Zip code, what is that? 53147. Please don't send anything there. I am sure. I don't know who is at that P.O. Box right now. It is not TSR. They are not answering D&D questions. Is there anything at the end? Okay, so here we get the map. And they are using squares rather than hexes. Presumably because this is really not a large area. I can only imagine that's probably the reason why. I mean, I'm assuming that all of this would fit probably fairly comfortably into one. Let's see. I don't know the math on it exactly, but what is it each? Does it say how big each square is? I'm sure it said somewhere. One square equals 300 feet. So what is it? How many? Oh gosh, I'm terrible. What are the 300 feet per mile? No, I mean how many feet per mile? I mean not 300 feet. Let's see. 1 mile in feet. 5,280 feet. So 5,280 divided by 300. So a little bit more than 17 of these squares to 1 mile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, so there's probably this whole thing fits probably within a couple miles by a couple miles, maybe 2.5 or 3 miles square. So yeah, well within a 6-mile hex. I probably would still find hexes a little bit more useful. Maybe, I don't know, probably doesn't matter at this scale, right? Who cares? Who cares? But that is it. That is Horror on the Hill. So, what are my parting thoughts? I will switch. Let me switch. What are my parting thoughts on Horror on the Hill? I like it. I like it a lot. With the, I suppose the caveats of the shoot trap that basically is a one-way ticket down to the lower levels, and the dragon that is theoretically unavoidable, and the fact that you have the escape tunnel that you cannot find it when you're on the surface, but will magically be there for you to get out when you've gotten to the dragon. There are probably much more elegant ways to do something similar to that. I might not even try. I mean, what's the big deal? I guess, see, the module, part of I think what maybe doesn't age well enough is you have a couple of things here. You have this dragon, you have the Hobgoblin King, and they're not really related at all. The Hobgoblin King is really just sitting above the dragon, doing his dirt, planning the downfall of Guido's keep. And then you have the dragon who's just there, I don't know, chilling. Doesn't seem to be attacking the fort either, just likes it to hang out. And there's no relationship there. So I get why they wouldn't want you to do one without having to do the other, because then you could just leave. You've got a number of rumors. You may have heard about the army or something about the army. You may have heard something about a dragon or something similar. So if you got to the dragon first and did that, then you might just say, okay, we're done, wander off. And the same thing with the Hobgoblin, the king, right? Because you may not have heard any rumor of any kind of dragon. You do the Hobgoblin King and you leave, and so then there's this other element of the adventure that you're not accessing. So they wanted to make sure you did the whole thing, so they really forcibly, tightly chained them together. No, you're doing the Hobgoblin King, and then you were doing the dragon. Damn it. And there's no way you're not doing it. And I think maybe more modern approach, a more flexible approach would be to have them be together. Why wouldn't the dragon, who clearly has a horde there, you've got a keep. I mean, granted, Guido's fort doesn't seem like it's that much of a, it doesn't have any wealth to it maybe, but it's maybe too close to comfort if this is where this dragon plans on being long term, making its home. Then maybe having this fort right there it doesn't want, so it could have easily made deals with the Hobgoblin King or recruited the Hobgoblin King and say, hey, look, you can live above me, you guys take care of business, right? So that if the Hobgoblin King gets in trouble, maybe he sends word or a signal down to the dragon. You could mix some kobold encounters up there. You could have some interesting things. Or there are ways you could link them together in a way that builds on the consequences of things, that taking out the Hobgoblin King sort of makes the dragon come out of its hiding a little bit, or if you attack the dragon, that forces the Hobgoblin King into action. There's a lot of ways you could try to kind of work these things together to make it a little bit more organic than kind of basically sort of a gotcha twist, like, aha, now you're trapped kind of thing, which, look, every once in a while it's fine, but I don't think it's a good tool to build off of. But I understand it, because remember, we're talking about a published module, so trying to do the best they can. But if I were going to take this and run this for my game now, those are the kind of changes I would make. However, there's a lot of stuff on the positive side of the ledger, right? You have this wilderness area you can get to. I love those two ladies who were there in the house. It rewards your party for not going with their first impulse, which is just to kill and loot, but really rewards them if they decide to do a little wheel and dealing. And there are a couple of spots like that. I like that there's kind of this idea of rewarding the characters for hurting the Hobgoblin King's invasion chances by destroying those stockpiles. You could do a lot more with that. And you could really, if you wanted to put a more stronger through line in here, you could have them be hired. I could see the pitch for this changing a little from just like, hey, you're in the tavern and you heard rumors, because that's kind of the classic thing, right? You're in the tavern, you hear rumors, so you go out and you try to find out which rumors are true, which rumors are false. But what if Guido's fort actively recruited you and said, listen, we don't have the manpower to both keep the fort running and protected and find out what's going on. We need eyes and ears out there across the river. We need to figure out what's going on and, scout out this and let us know. And then you could have a lot more back and forth with, okay, if they're scouting out, when do they report back? Right? You could run it much more like a military operation if they wanted to. All right, we scouted it out. This stuff's happening. Okay, we got to stop them. But there's something else, right? You start getting the Hobgoblin King, but you get these hints that there's something else going on. There's something behind. What is this creature or forces behind the Hobgoblin King? Aha, it's the red dragon. You could really work that together. So those are the kind of changes I could do if I can run it again. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. Obviously, I always love when they put a lot of tactical information about what various creatures could do and would do. There are definitely some really interesting encounter areas, particularly the bridges of death, which I thought were great. There's a lot of content here. They don't flesh out the Guido's fort at all. It's just a name, and then there's the tavern. So that would probably be another thing that I would do if I was going to prep this to run, is to maybe give it some more personality. There's really nothing there. It's just a place. I've heard of some people taking the keep from Keep of the Borderlands and using it in both spots, where, you could kind of stretch out the geography a little bit, but having that keep kind of be the hub for both, since they do flesh out the keep from Keep of the Borderlands a lot more than they flesh out this one. Or you could just create your own people and places, and it could really be a nice hub for a lot of adventures. And who knows what's past the hill, as they call it. But in any regard, I like it a lot. It's got some caveats. There's stuff that I would go in there and change if I was going to run this myself. But it was a fun read, a lot of fun stuff going on. I hope you liked it. I apologize for the hard apologies. I apologize for the difficulties I have had. I have the recording from the first part. Will have locally, and then hopefully through Restream have the recording for this part. I will meld them together so that I can push it out as one whole if you want to watch it front to back. But that's all I've got for now. As usual, if you enjoyed these, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be notified. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers in the next 2.5 to 3 weeks. So if you'd like to help me out, I'm trying to get there before my birthday. So that's sort of my own personal kind of motivational goal. So if you'd like to help me out, I would really appreciate it a lot. Other than that, game on. Have a great day, night, or whenever you listen or watch this. And I'll talk to you later.